Good afternoon, good people. It's Mr. Stanley. We're looking at advanced research. Previously, we looked at the types of interviews, what are interviews and other related information. Some of the things which were defined are structured or standardized interviews, semi-structured, in-depth interviews, which are unstructured interviews in another manner, face-to-face interviews, telephone, and then focus groups. So today we want to discuss more about other types as well as some interviewer tasks and skills that one has to obtain, as well as some other things that we may cruise through the interviews. Okay, other types which are informal conversation interviews, which are not determined with anything, but they're just open and adaptable as the interviews nature and priorities, as well as how the interview goes and creates the flow. And then general interview guide approach. This is intended to ensure that the same general areas of information are collected from each interviewee. So this provides more focus than the conversational approach, but still allows a degree of freedom and adaptability in getting the information as well. As well as some other standardized or open-ended interviews. These ones are the same open-ended questions are asked to all interviews. This approach, it facilitates faster interviews that can be more easily analyzed and compared. So this one is just like questions generated, it's open-ended. And then open-ended, so these are more also structured as well. And then comes to fixed response. These fixed response are more or less the same question and asked you to choose answers from among the same set of alternatives. So this format is useful for those not practiced in interviewing. So it will also limit time and then looking at the advantages of interview method, opportunity for feedback, where the interviewer will provide direct feedback and give clarifications to the interviewee. It also probing complex answers where the interviewer can investigate into the respondent's answer when it is too brief or unclear, so they look into each side. Then length of interview, if the question is very lengthy, the personal interview is the best technique for getting respondents to cooperate without overtaxing their patience, you see. Then complete questionnaires, respondent will answer all questions asked, and then unlike in telephone interview, so they can just answer everything where they cannot hang up the phone. And then props and visual aids interviewers have the opportunity of showing respondents items such as sample products, graphs, and so on. Then high participation respondents personally can increase the likelihood of their participation, even giving handouts and so on. Then disadvantages, costs, specifically for those personal interviews face-to-face, or calling costs as well. So, and also geographic proximity, which also deals with the distance, and then the number of non-respondents and so on. So the costs can also be enjoyed in all personal, telephone, internet, and then mail, since you have to pay for the services. And then lack of anonymity. Respondents are not anonymous in a personal interview or face-to-face interview and may be unwilling to disclose certain information. It depends on the type of interview as well. And then necessity for callbacks, like when a person selected for interview cannot be reached the first time, a callback has to be scheduled, which results in extra cost and time spent. Variance effect, it has been shown that the demographic characteristics of the interviewer can influence the answers of the respondents. In one study, male interviewers have much larger variance of answers than female interviewers in a sample of most female interviewers. Like most of the sample were female, but male respondents, they gave more answers which override female interviewers. Dishonesty can also be a problem. Personal style, the interviewer individual questioning style techniques can also influence the answers. Then global considerations, cultural aspects, what they call multicultural perspective. So some things may discourage females from being questioned by male interviewers. It depends on the areas and the religion as well. So criteria for the interviewer. Before we go to the criteria for the interviewer, we want to look at some tasks and skills that one has to also make use of. Like, for example, following the correct order, filtering throughout the questionnaire, one has to, to have such qualities as an interviewer, like which is being probed up. So which means an interviewer should go through a certain training or familiarizing with some certain skills. Also keeping personal opinions to oneself as an interviewer. You don't have to expose your opinions throughout. Reading out pre-codes and prompts were instructed. Like for a very good example here, prompts which help, like for example here, a prompt is prepared response responded by the interviewer. Or you see, yes, those are prepared respondents, question 1, question 3, all such kind of things. Reading out, probing when necessary. A probe is a follow-up question that is used after the respondent has given their first answer, just to do a follow-up, trying to expose as much information as possible. Then not reading out pre-codes for questions requiring spontaneous answers. Some certain questions where spontaneous answers are required, one doesn't need to be guided or being told some certain codes. If yes to question 1, then we go to question 3, such things like that. Then writing down open-ended responses in full. Open-ended responses should be taken in full. And also, one is to be able to have 4 key tasks as an interviewer: to locate the respondent, to obtain agreement to the interview, and then to ask questions and record the answers. So those are some of the skills that an interviewer has to possess. So in details, I will direct you to page 10 on the interviewer skills document, which is there on your Moodle. So I just gave an overview so that when you get in there, you also read details as well. And then looking at some certain sources and error and bias in interviewing, a deviation from written instructions on the questionnaire. It can also become a source of bias and error. Interrogation error is when occurs when the questions are phrased differently from respondent to the next. For example, what is your age could produce different response than asking how old are you. You see, so those interrogation errors, and then comes to interpretation errors, which occur when the interviewer is to make a subjective judgment as how to code an answer, trying to make a subjective judgment. There can come interpretation errors, and then comes recording errors. The interviewer is to write down and then they record inappropriately. So looking at the criteria for the interviewer, be able to be knowledgeable, familiar with the topics, structuring, outline the procedures of the interview, and then clear, simple, short answers, gentle, be tolerant and sensitive as well, steering to control the course of the interview, be able to control your interview, critical, try to test the reliability and validity of what the interview tells, remembering, also retaining the subject information from the interviewee, and then interpreting, to be able to interpret information that you have gathered. Some types of topics in question: behavior, opinions and values, feelings, knowledge, as well as sensory, what people have seen, touched, heard, tested, or smelled. And then background or demographics, standard background questions such as age and education. So after the interview, verify if the tape recorder, if used, worked throughout the interview. Make any notes on your written notes, write down any observations made during the interview. So one can use interview techniques as one of the data collection methods for the research. So it makes the researcher to feel that the data that has been collected should be truth, or should be trustworthy, honest, and then original by nature because of the face-to-face interaction. That's was interview. So the question portion, let's meet in the discussion forum where we have to bring out what an interview is, or the comment section where one have to explain and give their opinion and also identify some certain types of interviews which have been mentioned there, which also haven't been mentioned for better understanding. So next lesson, we are going to look at strategies that we can use in conducting elite interviews. You have a wonderful day.